What happens when a woman once celebrated as the future of a modern monarchy is thrown out of Hollywood's most elite gathering by a man known for his unmatched charm, unshakable calm, and worldwide respect? Now imagine this. Cameras flashing, A-listers frozen mid-bite, and in the center of it all, Meghan Markle, half standing, half pulled by security, looking stunned, defiant, maybe even desperate. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And across the room, standing tall, arms crossed, watching in silence, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yes, that Dwayne Johnson, the people's champion, the man with the billion-dollar smile, the one person nobody ever thought would involve himself in royal drama, until now. But what really happened that day inside the Four Seasons private ballroom? Why was Meghan there in the first place, especially when insiders say she was never even invited? And what did she say to Dwayne Johnson that made him freeze in place, just before he nodded to his security team? That's not gossip. That's a direct quote from someone who was there. And what happened next? It shocked even the most hardened Hollywood publicists. Let me ask you, can someone fall from grace twice? Because if Meghan's first fall was from royal favor, this one might have been the moment Hollywood finally said, no more. And the worst part? She may have orchestrated it all herself. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's rewind the tape. It was supposed to be a celebration. The first-time Golden Globe nominee luncheon. An exclusive tradition, often quiet, elegant, tucked between award season madness. A space where breakout actors rub shoulders with seasoned producers. No press, no drama, just respect. Until one guest arrived who wasn't on the list. She walked in as if she owned the room. Head high, designer clutch in hand, hair perfectly swept up. That practiced smile, half Hollywood, half royal. Meghan Markle. No Harry, no children, no entourage. Well, none that people could spot. Just Meghan. And according to 3 separate sources, she came with a very specific goal in mind. Not to congratulate first-time nominees. Not to support an up-and-coming actress she once mentored. Not even to network discreetly with producers. She came for one thing, a staged photo op with Dwayne Johnson. One that would have gone viral in under 60 seconds. Think about that. Because this wasn't an accident. It wasn't a surprise visit. This was a move. Now why does any of this matter? Isn't Hollywood full of awkward encounters? Clout chasing? PR stunts? Yes. But this is different. Because Meghan Markle isn't just another celebrity trying to stay relevant. She's the woman who walked away from royalty. She's the woman who claimed she was silenced, only to then dominate headlines for years. She's the woman whose Netflix series, tell-all interviews, and lawsuits have made her either a feminist icon or a manipulative spotlight seeker, depending on who you ask. So when she shows up uninvited to one of the most private, carefully curated events of award season, right before Netflix announces its new slate of prestige projects, that's not just another tabloid blip. That's a strategic play, and one that failed, publicly. Because instead of walking away with the perfect image, her and Dwayne smiling, arms linked, united in star power, she left red-faced, flanked by security, while whispers trailed behind her like perfume. One onlooker said she seemed shocked it didn't work. Another said, she looked like she'd been promised something. Like someone told her, don't worry, it's all arranged. But who promised her that? And why did Dwayne Johnson, Hollywood's most diplomatic A-lister, choose this moment to say no? Here's what we're going to break down. We'll take you step by step through everything that happened before, during, and after the luncheon. We'll expose the backstage mechanics of PR manipulation. We'll trace the real relationships Meghan tried to leverage and why they didn't show up for her this time. We'll explore her rumored backdoor entry plan. The heated whisper she allegedly delivered to Dwayne Johnson before security was called. The panic behind the scenes as publicists scrambled. And the eerie silence from powerful names who once championed her. But most importantly, we'll ask the question Hollywood insiders are now whispering. Was this Meghan's final play for re-entry into Hollywood's inner circle? Or was it just the beginning of something even more desperate? You see, Meghan doesn't fade quietly. Every time you think she's gone silent, she returns with a new strategy, a new angle, a new headline. And this time, it wasn't a podcast or a documentary. It was a performance. Live, unfiltered, and in the wrong room. So why now? Why here? And why target Dwayne Johnson of all people? That's where the story takes a turn. Because there's history. Unconfirmed, buried, but whispered about. A red carpet encounter in 2012. A mutual contact in the Netflix executive suite. A possible meeting years ago that, according to rumors, didn't end well. And when Meghan saw him at the luncheon, sources say her demeanor shifted instantly. Confident, then careful, calculating. She made a beeline. But something about the exchange, just feet from shocked nominees like Lily Gladstone and Coleman Domingo, set off alarm bells. Within minutes, security was at her side. And then, the moment that defined the day. Dwayne Johnson, stone-faced, no smile, no signature charm. Looked to his head of security, gave a subtle nod, and said just 3 words. Get her out. The room froze. A publicist gasped. And Meghan? She whispered something back. We don't know what it was yet. But whatever she said made Dwayne pause, just for a second. Not enough to change his mind, but enough to make the moment strange, even haunting. And then she was gone. Left behind. Whispers, broken plans, and a Hollywood machine scrambling to figure out what just happened. Over the next hour, we'll reveal everything. We'll talk to insiders. We'll break down footage. We'll follow the ripple effects, from Netflix boardrooms to Oprah's inner circle. And we'll ask the big question. What does this moment mean for Meghan Markle? Because this wasn't just a rejection. It was an excommunication. From the very world she's been fighting to dominate. And the irony? She used to belong here. But now, even Hollywood is asking, why is she still trying to come back? But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Have you ever been in a room where the energy shifts before anyone says a word? Where the smiles freeze, forks pause midair, laughter cuts short, and no one can quite explain why? Now imagine that moment happening in a room full of Hollywood's most powerful rising stars. Cameras flashing, champagne bubbling, studio execs leaning in with million-dollar grins. Dreams being made at every table. And then, just like that, the temperature drops. You could feel it. You could see it. And at the center of it all, not a nominee, not a director, not even an invited guest. Meghan Markle, the Duchess, the former royal turned podcast dropout turned Netflix documentarian turned something else. No one could agree on what, exactly, but everyone agreed on this. She wasn't supposed to be there. And yet, there she stood. Let's rewind. The first-time Golden Globes nominee luncheon has long been a best-kept industry secret. Not because it's hidden, but because of what it isn't. No press, no grand speeches, no cameras. Just a quiet, elegant gathering at the Four Seasons Beverly Hills to celebrate the newest faces of film and TV excellence. It's where reputations are made with a single conversation, where first impressions can lead to feature film deals. It's sacred, private, intimate, and strictly guest list only. So when Meghan Markle walked through those heavy glass doors in a floor-length white Ralph Lauren dress, perfectly tailored, timeless, clean, people noticed. Heads turned, eyes widened. One studio head blinked twice, then muttered under his breath, "Wait, is that?" She didn't wait to be welcomed. She walked in like it was expected, like the room owed her something, like she was finally back where she belonged. But here's the thing, she wasn't on the list. We know this because of a single moment. A young intern at the check-in table, clipboard in hand, trembling slightly, looked up as Meghan approached. There was a pause, then confusion. The intern flipped pages, checked again, smiled awkwardly. "I'm sorry, I don't see." And that's when Meghan leaned in. According to a nearby caterer, she said quietly, but firmly, "I'm here as a guest of Netflix. Call your supervisor." What supervisor? The check-in table was the final line of defense. But something strange happened. Within seconds, a sleek woman in a navy blue pantsuit appeared, whispered something to the intern, and nodded. And just like that, Meghan was in. No name badge, no seat assignment. Just that walk, that posture, that icy grace, like a chess piece gliding into place. Now here's where it gets eerie. Multiple guests have since come forward to say they felt it right away. Not tension, exactly, but disruption. A ripple that unsettled the atmosphere. Like someone dropped a stone into still water. This wasn't a fan slipping past security. This wasn't an awkward +1 tagging along with a nominee. This was something else. Intentional, calculated, and timed. Because just as Meghan entered the ballroom, The room was quieting for dessert and coffee, a lull in the energy. The perfect moment for impact. The lull before the click of cameras. The eye of the social media storm. Meghan knew that. She always knows when to make an entrance. But here's where it gets even stranger. She didn't walk to the bar. She didn't find a table to join or a quiet corner to stand in. She went straight toward the center of the room, toward a circle of power players including Margot Robbie, Coleman Domingo, the showrunner of The Bear, and Dwayne Johnson. Let that sink in. She bypassed the fringe of the luncheon, the publicists, the stylists, the assistant directors. She went straight for the crown. And Dwayne? He saw her coming. Eyewitnesses describe it like a scene from a prestige drama. Meghan, smiling slightly, one hand brushing her hair behind her ear. Dwayne, mid-conversation, slowly turning. His eyes narrowing. His body straightening. The mood flipped. Fast. Let's pause and zoom out for a moment. Why was this such a big deal? Because Meghan Markle, love her or hate her, represents something. To some, she's a feminist trailblazer. To others, a manipulative operator. But what no one disputes is that she's strategic. So her showing up at this event, one of the most career-defining moments for new talent, was not just random. It was symbolic. It was a move. A reclamation attempt. She wasn't here to mingle. She was here to be seen. But by whom? And why Dwayne Johnson? Now here's a twist. A Netflix executive, who spoke under condition of anonymity, said Meghan had previously asked about attending industry events where Netflix talent gathers. Not in an official capacity, not as a producer, but just to support emerging voices. That's the phrase her email reportedly used. Support. Interesting choice of word, don't you think? Because what Meghan did that day didn't feel like support. It felt like an ambush. And Dwayne, he doesn't get ambushed. We'll get into their rumored past history later, but for now, let's stay in that moment. Because the confrontation was just seconds away. One producer tried to intercept Meghan, reportedly saying, "Hey, are you on the list? You look amazing, by the way." Classic Hollywood maneuver. Compliment first, question later. Meghan brushed it off with a smile, nodded, and kept walking. She was almost at the circle. That's when the air truly shifted. Even the waitstaff slowed down. And in the middle of it all, Dwayne Johnson, smiling 1 minute, jaw clenched the next, watched her approach. According to multiple sources, he took a single step back, just enough to create space. Meghan extended her hand. "Dwayne," she said warmly. "It's been a long time." What long time? They've never been publicly linked. But maybe that's exactly the point. She wanted it to look like they had history, familiarity, power symmetry. Only, it didn't land. Dwayne didn't shake her hand. He didn't smile. He said something under his breath. No one's quite sure what. One actor says it was, "What are you doing here?" Another says it was, "Not now." Whatever it was, Meghan's face changed. Just slightly, like a flicker behind the eyes. A moment of calculation. And then she leaned in. A whisper. Just a few words. And Dwayne's expression hardened. That was the moment. The instant. The click in the machine. Because from across the room, Dwayne's head of security, former military, built like a wall, began moving forward. Not running. Just walking. Calm, steady, purposeful. One publicist saw him and said aloud, "Oh." Another grabbed her phone and started recording. But here's the thing. They weren't sure what was happening yet. Was this a misunderstanding? A paparazzi scare? Or something bigger? Then it happened. Dwayne looked his security guy in the eye and nodded. Once. That's all it took. Seconds later, 2 security men were by Meghan's side. Not touching her. Not yet. Just there. She froze. The room held its breath. One actress whispered, "No way." And Meghan? She turned back to Dwayne and said, according to a nearby guest, "You don't have to do this." Dwayne didn't respond. And the guards? They moved in. Politely. Professionally. But with no room for negotiation. One of them said, "Ma'am, this is a private event. We're going to have to ask you to step outside." Let that sink in. At a room full of people who once courted her for interviews, who gave her standing ovations just years ago, Meghan Markle was being escorted out. Not for a fight. Not for a threat. Just for existing in the wrong place. Without an invite. And with the wrong strategy. She didn't argue. She didn't shout. But her eyes, multiple sources say, flashed with something. Anger? Embarrassment? Defiance? No one knows. All anyone knows is that Meghan Markle was ushered through that pristine ballroom, past stunned faces, heels clicking louder than ever. And Dwayne Johnson watched the entire thing. Unmoving, unapologetic. But what did she whisper before he gave the signal? That is what we'll explore next. Because what came out days later sent shockwaves through PR agencies, Netflix offices, and the very people Meghan once called friends. She wasn't just removed. She was recorded, and someone inside had already leaked the audio. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What if the most dramatic moment of the night was never supposed to happen? What if someone inside the most exclusive event of the year opened a back door? And what if Meghan Markle didn't just show up uninvited, but was helped in by someone playing both sides? Let's be clear, Meghan Markle walking into the first-time Golden Globes nominee luncheon wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a mix-up. It wasn't someone's assistant putting her on the wrong list. It was a calculated move. But here's the twist. She didn't act alone. Someone let her in. The question is, who? And why? Let's go back to the check-in table. The velvet rope. The first line of defense. According to two separate sources who worked the luncheon, the guest list was airtight. That's their word, airtight. Printed. Verified. Double-checked by studio reps. Triple-checked by the HFPA's internal security staff. And yet, when Meghan arrived, there was a moment. A crack. She said she was a guest of Netflix. That alone wouldn't work. Everyone knows name-dropping only gets you so far in Hollywood. But then, within seconds, a woman in a navy blue pantsuit appeared out of nowhere, whispered something into the ear of the young intern handling check-ins, and gave a discreet nod. And Meghan was let through. That woman, still unnamed. But several attendees claimed to have seen her again. Hovering near the event's staff-only corridor, speaking briefly with a man wearing a lanyard labeled Golden Globes Coordination. Was she part of the HFPA? Was she Netflix staff? Or was she someone else entirely? We dug deeper. There's a name that keeps coming up. Kale. That's how she was referred to in messages we were able to review from a leaked group chat among junior Netflix assistants. Kale is allegedly a mid-level PR fixer. Someone who floats between agencies, handling crisis management and off-the-books logistics. Not officially listed as staff anywhere, but known, trusted, used by some of the most image-conscious stars in the business. A ghost in the machine. One assistant claimed, "She's the one you call when you need a photo op with someone who doesn't want to be seen with you." Let that sink in. That's not PR. That's manipulation. And that's exactly the kind of person Meghan might have needed if she was planning something bold. So let's explore that theory. What if Meghan knew she couldn't get into the event legitimately? What if she didn't even try? What if she contacted someone like Kale and asked, "What would it take to get me in for 10 minutes? Not to stay, not to sit, just long enough to be seen, to be photographed, to stand next to Dwayne Johnson, Hollywood's most bankable star." Think of the headline. Meghan Markle surprises Golden Globe nominees, seen laughing with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That kind of headline writes itself. It would dominate feeds. It would soften the months of negative press. It would hint at a comeback. And if she could pull it off, Netflix, Oprah, even Disney might suddenly see her in a new light. A potential collaborator again. But that plan, it unraveled the second Meghan came face-to-face with someone who doesn't play games. Dwayne Johnson. He didn't smile. He didn't shake her hand. And he didn't give her the photo she came for. Now here's where things get complicated. Some people inside the event are starting to suspect that Meghan was promised something. That someone told her, "It's all arranged. Just walk in." Because multiple eyewitnesses say Meghan didn't look like she was sneaking in. She looked confident, prepared, entitled, even. One guest recalled, she wasn't scanning the room nervously. She was striding across it like she knew where she was going. Another added, she didn't hesitate at the door. You only do that if you've been told it's handled. And that raises a darker question. Was this a setup? Did someone inside the industry greenlight this move, only to pull the rug out from under her? Was Meghan being played? Here's one theory floating through Hollywood circles right now. That someone within the Netflix publicity machine saw Meghan as a liability and gave her just enough rope to hang herself with. Think about it. Meghan has become polarizing. A-list stars who once aligned with her have pulled away. Oprah's team is quiet. Spotify pulled the plug. And insiders say Netflix is evaluating future collaborations with her and Harry. So what if this was a quiet test? A chance to see how she'd behave when given access to a high-value moment. And instead of blending in, she tried to dominate it. That's not loyalty. That's danger. But there's more. Hours after the luncheon, a screenshot circulated in a private group chat of stylists and publicists. It showed a digital copy of the official guest list. Meghan's name wasn't on it. But another document surfaced later that evening. A fake. A doctored PDF that included Meghan's name, listed as a VIP guest, Netflix, pending confirm. The font was slightly off. The alignment crooked. It had clearly been tampered with. Someone tried to create the illusion of legitimacy. After the fact, and the worst part? It almost worked. Some entertainment blogs ran with it. Meghan attends to support indie filmmakers, read one headline. But those stories were pulled within hours. Why? Because Golden Globes organizers issued a quiet correction. One line. Ms. Markle was not an invited guest at this event. Cold, clean, direct. But Meghan's PR machine didn't give up. According to leaked messages from a celebrity photographer, her team was actively requesting footage of the moment she entered the room before security was called. Why? Because from the right angle, from the right perspective, that footage could be spun. A smile, a wave, a candid laugh, anything that looked like acceptance. But they didn't get what they wanted. And by the time the story went public, the damage was done. Meghan didn't just crash a private event. She left a paper trail, a mess, and 1,000 unanswered questions. Was she betrayed? Was she misled? Or is this just the latest example of a strategy gone wrong? You tell me. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. When Meghan walked into that ballroom, she believed she had leverage. She believed someone would vouch for her. She believed Dwayne Johnson, of all people, would play along. But when he didn't, when he shut it down without blinking, her entire plan collapsed. And the silence that followed? It was deafening. No tweets from celebrities defending her. No Instagram stories from sympathetic stylists. Not even a misunderstanding statement from Netflix. Just silence. And in Hollywood, silence means something. It means you're no longer protected. You're no longer relevant. You're no longer dangerous. You're expendable. But Meghan's not done. She never is. Because as she left that event, escorted quietly past startled faces and curious cameras, she made a phone call. And that call, according to multiple sources, was to someone who once helped her become a global phenomenon. Someone she swore she'd never contact again. Someone who might just help her turn this humiliation into a comeback. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What happens in the split second when a plan meets resistance? Not the loud kind. Not an argument. Not a public scene. But the quiet kind. The kind where a smile doesn't land, a hand isn't taken, and the room suddenly understands that something has gone very wrong. That's where we pick up. Because if Chapter 2 was about how Meghan got in, Chapter 3 is about the moment everything collapsed. Let me ask you something. Have you ever reached out your hand, confident, assured, absolutely certain the other person would take it, only for them to hesitate? That hesitation, it's devastating. And in that ballroom, that hesitation echoed louder than any shouted insult ever could. Meghan Markle didn't hesitate. She didn't slow down. She didn't look unsure. She walked straight toward Dwayne Johnson with the kind of practiced confidence you only develop when you believe the outcome is guaranteed. Her posture said familiarity. Her smile said history. Her hand said, "We're equals." But Dwayne Johnson's face? It said something else entirely. Eyewitnesses described the moment with eerie consistency. At first, he didn't move. He didn't step forward. He didn't step back. He just watched her approach. And the closer she got, the more his expression changed. Not shock. Not confusion. Recognition. That's the word people keep using. Recognition without warmth. Recognition without welcome. Recognition that carries memory. And then Meghan stopped, just close enough to enter his personal space. She tilted her head slightly, the way she does when she wants to soften a moment. "Dwayne," she said, voice warm, measured. "It's been a long time." Now stop right there. Because that sentence raised eyebrows instantly. A long time? By all public records, Meghan and Dwayne Johnson have never been friends. Never co-stars. Never collaborators. Never even photographed together. So what long time was she referring to? That's when the tension snapped into place. Dwayne didn't smile. He didn't mirror her body language. He didn't even nod politely. Instead, his jaw tightened, and for just a moment, he looked annoyed. One actor standing nearby later said, "It wasn't anger. It was disappointment." Like he was thinking, "Why are you doing this here?" Meghan extended her hand. Palm open, fingers relaxed. A handshake, the simplest social contract. And Dwayne didn't take it. Let that sink in. In Hollywood, refusing a handshake is practically a declaration of war. It's not accidental. It's not forgetfulness. It's intentional. And everyone saw it. The people at the table fell silent. A producer choked on his espresso. A publicist stopped mid-sentence. Because when Dwayne Johnson doesn't take your hand, it's not just personal, it's symbolic. He's known as one of the most gracious men in the industry. He shakes hands with fans, with interns, with strangers. So if he doesn't shake yours, that sends a message. Meghan's smile flickered. Just a fraction. Just enough. And then she leaned in. This is the moment people keep coming back to. The whisper. The one no one heard clearly, but everyone felt. She lowered her voice and said something directly into Dwayne's ear. Different witnesses claimed different versions. One says she mentioned Netflix. Another says she name-dropped a mutual contact. One swears she said, "You know why I'm here." But here's what they all agree on. Whatever she said changed his expression instantly. His eyes hardened. His shoulders squared. And he stepped back. That movement, small, subtle, created distance. Not just physical distance. Power distance. And that's when the atmosphere shifted from awkward to dangerous. Meghan noticed. She straightened, adjusted her posture, and tried again. "You look great," she said louder now. "I was hoping we could get a quick photo. Just for fun. Just for fun." Those 3 words landed like a lie. Because nothing about this was casual. Nothing about her presence was accidental. And Dwayne knew it. He glanced around the room, not nervously, but deliberately. He clocked the phones, the lenses, the people watching. And then he said something quietly, firmly. No, just that. No explanation. No apology. No softening. No. That's when the whispers started. A stylist leaned over to her client and muttered, "Oh my God." A junior exec whispered, "She really thought this would work." And Meghan? She didn't leave. She didn't retreat. She doubled down. This is important. Because this is the moment when everything could have ended quietly. She could have laughed it off, played it cool, slipped out before anyone noticed. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped closer. Too close. And that's when Dwayne's head of security began to move. But before we get there, let's talk about Meghan's face. People describe it as conflicted. Not angry, not embarrassed, but calculating. Like she was recalibrating in real time. Asking herself, what angle do I still have? She tried warmth. She tried familiarity. She tried leverage. None of it worked. So she tried something else. She leaned in again and whispered. This time, according to one witness, her tone changed. Lower, sharper, less friendly, more urgent. And Dwayne's reaction? He froze. Just for a second. And that second, oh, it mattered. Because that was the moment the room collectively thought. Wait, does she actually have something on him? Does she know something? Did they cross paths before, somewhere no one knows about? That's the question Hollywood started asking. Because his face didn't show fear, but it did show recognition. And recognition makes people uncomfortable. Dwayne didn't respond verbally. He didn't argue. He didn't ask questions. He just turned his head slightly and made eye contact with his security chief. That's all. No raised voice. No dramatic gesture. Just eye contact. And the security chief nodded. At that moment, the illusion shattered. Because Meghan realized something. She realized this wasn't going to end in a photograph. It was going to end in removal. But even then, she didn't panic. She tried one last move. You don't have to do this, she said quietly, but audibly enough for those closest to hear. That sentence is fascinating. Because it implies expectation. It implies obligation. It implies she believed Dwayne owed her discretion, or cooperation, or silence. But he didn't respond. And that silence was louder than anything else. 2 security guards stepped in. Polite, professional, non-confrontational. Ma'am, one of them said, we need you to step outside. This is where some people expected a scene. Raised voices. Protests. But Meghan didn't explode. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She looked around. And that's when reality hit. No one was stepping in. No ally rushed forward. No producer said, She's with me. No celebrity defended her presence. They watched. Quietly. Uncomfortably. Like witnesses to something they didn't want to be part of. And that might have been the most painful part. Because in Hollywood, you can survive rejection. What you can't survive is isolation. As she was guided away, Meghan turned one last time toward Dwayne. And this is crucial. Because she didn't look angry. She looked stunned. As if she couldn't believe he had actually followed through. As if she had misjudged him completely. And maybe she had. Because Dwayne Johnson isn't someone you can pressure in public. He's not someone you can corner. He's not someone who bends to optics. And that's what she miscalculated. She thought the room would force him to play along. She thought politeness would override principle. She thought cameras would protect her. She was wrong. And as she was escorted out, past tables of people who once would have lined up for selfies with her, something else happened. Someone nearby lifted their phone and recorded. Just a few seconds. Enough to capture the moment. Enough to capture the tension. Enough to capture her face as realization set in. And that clip? It didn't stay private. It was shared, then deleted, then recovered. And by the time the sun rose the next morning, Hollywood had already chosen its side. But we're not there yet. Because before the footage leaked, before the statements, before the silence, something else happened. Something far more revealing. Because just moments before Meghan crossed the threshold into the hallway, she whispered one final sentence to Dwayne Johnson. A sentence that would later be repeated by multiple sources. A sentence that made even seasoned insiders uneasy. And when that sentence eventually surfaced, it changed how people understood the entire encounter. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What happens when the very industry you once dazzled turns its back? Not with shouts, not with scandal, but with silence. What happens when your calculated entrance ends in an equally calculated exile? And what happens when you realize it far too late? That's exactly what Meghan Markle experienced in the hours and days following her ejection from the first-time Golden Globes nominee luncheon. But here's what no one's telling you. The true damage didn't come from the security guards, or even from Dwayne Johnson's cold dismissal. It came from the aftershocks, the texts, the whispers, the conversations that rippled quietly behind closed doors, across Beverly Hills brunch tables, Hollywood gym locker rooms, and luxury SUV rides between meetings. This wasn't a tabloid scandal. It was a social purge. Let's be clear, Hollywood doesn't cancel loudly. It cancels strategically, quietly, subtly, permanently. And Meghan? She didn't just get escorted out of a ballroom. She got walked out of relevance. Let's break down how it started. Because the moment security closed the door behind her, Hollywood opened its group chats. The first was a simple message from a mid-level studio publicist. She really tried it. Dwayne shut it down hard. Within minutes, that message was screenshot and passed to agents, stylists, assistants, and eventually reporters. Then came the video. Only a few seconds, but enough. A flick of the phone lens as Meghan approached Dwayne. A smile. A raised hand. No handshake. The stiffening of his posture. And then, the gentle, firm removal. It spread like wildfire. And here's the part Meghan didn't see coming. People were relieved. That's right, relieved. One Hollywood PR veteran, speaking anonymously, said it best. It was like the industry was waiting for someone to say no. To remind everyone that power isn't about headlines. It's about credibility. And Dwayne still has it. Meghan doesn't. Ouch. But it gets worse. Because by that night, an unspoken consensus had formed. She was no longer untouchable. And when that wall breaks, the knives come out. Suddenly, people who had kept their Meghan horror stories quiet started talking. One casting assistant claimed she once ghosted a director's Zoom call minutes before start time, then blamed the time zone, despite being in the same city. A costume designer recalled a Netflix meeting where Meghan reportedly insisted on being filmed only from the left, despite it being an audio-only pitch. And a well-known actress, who requested anonymity, told a friend, "She kept calling me sis. We met once, briefly, at a gala. She thinks it's enough to be seen with us. She doesn't know us." Let's pause there, because that comment says everything. It reveals the real wound, the one that PR can't fix. Meghan Markle is no longer seen as one of them. Not because she's different, but because she pretends not to be. There's a word insiders use when someone tries to climb the ladder too quickly without earning it. Thirsty. And suddenly, thirsty was everywhere. in TikToks, in group chats, in interviews where A-listers raised eyebrows and said, "No comment." No comment is a comment. But it didn't stop there. Behind the scenes, studio execs who had once courted the Sussexes for content began pulling away. One project rumored to be in early talks with Archwell Productions, a prestige drama set in South Africa, was abruptly delayed for internal reasons. Another, a documentary series about global female leaders, suddenly lost momentum. Translation? Cold feet. No one wants to be attached to a brand that's imploding, especially not in the middle of award season. But perhaps the most brutal indicator of all, an A-list actress, nominated that night, posted a carousel of photos from the luncheon. Candid smiles, toasts, behind-the-scenes laughs. Every major star tagged, except one. In the final slide, a blurry shot of Meghan, caught mid-turn, her face half-shadowed, walking away. The caption? When they forget to RSVP. Eye sparkles #no invite. Thousands of likes. Dozens of laughing emojis from verified accounts. It was subtle, petty, surgical, and it was a message. She's out. But here's the contradiction that makes this even more fascinating. The very industry now punishing Meghan is the same one that once elevated her to icon status. Let's not forget, when she married into the royal family, Hollywood exploded with pride. She was their own, an actress, a woman of color, an outsider, rising to royalty. The fairy tale narrative practically wrote itself. But when the honeymoon faded, and the docuseries aired, and the Spotify deal crumbled, and the podcast dreams fizzled, the industry shifted. Because Hollywood is built on one sacred rule: deliver. It doesn't matter who you are. If you don't deliver on ratings, on relationships, on revenue, you're a risk. And Meghan? She's been trending downward for a while now. The signs were there. But the luncheon made it official. So how did she respond? Well, not with silence. According to insiders, her team immediately reached out to 3 media outlets to clarify the situation. They pushed a narrative that Meghan had been invited by a Netflix exec, but the invite had gotten lost in email threads. That she had only approached Dwayne Johnson because she respected him deeply and wanted to congratulate him on his work. And that her exit was a misunderstanding, handled with grace and professionalism by all parties involved. But here's the thing. No one bought it, because no one backed it. Netflix stayed silent. The Golden Globes organizers stayed silent. Dwayne Johnson, not a word. And the silence? It screamed. But Meghan didn't stop there. Her PR team quietly attempted to pitch a first-hand op-ed to several high-profile magazines, something framed as her truth, her voice, her perspective on the power of forgiveness. None accepted. One editor replied simply, "Wrong week. Let that hit you. This wasn't a blackout. It was a slow fade, a suffocation by silence." But what hurt most? The people who used to defend her, Oprah, Serena Williams, Ellen, said nothing. No statements, no reposts, no quiet support, just distance. And that kind of distance in Hollywood, it becomes permanent fast. So let's ask the question out loud. Why did Meghan think she could pull it off? Why did she believe that this time, she'd be welcomed? That one photograph with Dwayne would reset the narrative? Maybe it's denial. Maybe it's desperation. Maybe, just maybe, it's the echo chamber she lives in. One where her advisors tell her she's still the media darling, still a global icon, still in control. But reality doesn't care about echo chambers. Reality cares about perception. And in Hollywood, perception is power. And now, that power is slipping fast. Still, we know Meghan. She doesn't fade quietly. She retreats. She regroups. She recalculates. Because while the world was laughing at memes and reaction gifs of her awkward exit, something else was happening behind the scenes. Meghan made a phone call. Not to her agent. Not to her publicist. Not even to Harry. She called someone else. Someone she once relied on in her darkest moment. Someone who protected her when no one else would. Someone with enough power to shift the story again, if he chooses to answer. And that man was Tyler Perry. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. They thought the moment had passed. They thought no one would remember. That once Meghan was escorted out, the incident would fade into Hollywood's ever-churning rumor mill. Just another awkward celebrity misstep. But then, someone pressed play. And suddenly, it wasn't just a story anymore. It was evidence. Let's rewind, not to the luncheon itself, but to just before the chaos. Moments before Meghan Markle walked across that ballroom toward Dwayne Johnson, a studio intern, new to the industry, invisible to the stars, and eager to make a name for himself, did what every young hopeful in Hollywood is trained not to do. He hit record. Why? He claims it was for personal use. A little behind-the-scenes audio to relive what he called the most surreal day of my life. What he captured was the calm before the storm. And what he did with that recording? Well, that's where everything changes. Let's set the scene. The intern, whose identity we're protecting, was stationed near the back, assigned to manage logistics, refill coffee, and handle low-risk duties for the event's media team. He wasn't supposed to be near any of the A-list clusters. But as fate would have it, his job placed him directly in the line of sight between Meghan Markle and Dwayne Johnson. He noticed her the moment she walked in, because everyone noticed her. He watched as she approached the inner circle, the power table, the core of the event. Something told him, this is not normal. He pulled out his phone. No video, just voice memos. A low-risk move, right? Wrong. Because what that recording picked up, buried under the clinks of silverware and polite laughter, was a short, tense exchange that turned an awkward moment into a PR disaster. We've heard the audio, and while we can't share the full content here, we can describe it, because multiple sources have now verified what was said. Let's walk through it together. At first, the audio is muffled. Glasses clink. A waiter asks someone about their dietary restrictions. Then footsteps. You can hear heels. Sharp, deliberate, crossing marble floors. A pause. Then Meghan's voice. Dwayne, it's been a long time. There's silence for about 2 seconds. Then a deeper voice. Calm. Measured. You shouldn't be here. That line alone carries weight. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't confused. He was firm. Then Meghan again. Netflix said it was fine. I'm only here for a minute. Boom. There it is. The name drop. Netflix. Except sources inside the streamer immediately denied any formal invitation was sent. No one in the executive circle claims responsibility. No staffer listed Meghan as a guest. In fact, one Netflix VP reportedly said, that was the first time I'd seen her name mentioned in weeks. Back to the audio. You hear Dwayne again. I'm not doing this. Short. Clipped. Final. Then Meghan's whisper. Lowered voice. Harder to make out. But this is the line that set the room on fire. You owe me. Pause. You know what I'm talking about. What could she have meant? Here's where speculation takes over. Some say she was referencing a past favor, perhaps a quiet meeting, a moment of support, something off the record that she believed gave her leverage. Others believe it was a bluff, a strategic line meant to trigger uncertainty. Whatever the case, Dwayne's tone changes. He says, not here, not today. Then silence. And just beneath that silence, you hear movement. 2 heavier steps, security approaching, and Meghan's final audible sentence. This isn't how this was supposed to go. Then the recording ends. But this story, it was just beginning. Because the intern didn't delete it. He sent it to a friend, who sent it to someone else. And before long, a grainy snippet of the exchange, just 15 seconds, surfaced on a private Discord server frequented by Hollywood assistants. From there, it leaked to a subreddit. And within hours, media outlets were calling. Except, the post vanished. The user account was deleted. The Discord thread closed. Why? Because someone made it disappear. Fast. And when information disappears that quickly, you know it hit a nerve. Multiple insiders now confirm that within 24 hours of the leak, Meghan's legal team sent out takedown notices to at least 4 platforms. The claim? Unauthorized recording, invasion of privacy, misuse of copyrighted material. But here's the twist. The intern never signed an NDA, and the recording was made in a public setting. At an industry event where many conversations are overheard, transcribed, even informally documented by staff. So legally, it's murky. Ethically, it's explosive. Because this wasn't just an overheard conversation. This was a power dynamic unraveling in real time. And the fact that Meghan invoked debt, that she told Dwayne Johnson, you owe me, adds an entirely new layer to the narrative. What could he possibly owe her? Let's explore the theories. Theory number 1, a past encounter. One former Netflix associate claims Meghan and Dwayne did meet briefly in 2012 at a charity gala in Los Angeles. Meghan, then still on Suits, reportedly approached Dwayne about supporting a UN Women initiative she was passionate about. He declined, not out of disrespect, but due to scheduling conflicts. Could Meghan have interpreted that as a missed opportunity? A favor denied? Possibly. But would that justify her showing up 10 years later, whispering, "You owe me"? Unlikely. Theory number 2. Shared contact, the Oprah web. Another theory suggests Meghan tried to leverage mutual connections, particularly through Oprah's network, where Dwayne Johnson had previously partnered on a wellness campaign. The connection is there. But again, it's a stretch. Theory number 3, manufactured leverage. And then there's the darkest theory, that Meghan had no leverage. That "you owe me" was never about a real debt. It was a bluff, an emotional grenade meant to destabilize the moment. To shake Dwayne long enough to get what she needed, a moment of hesitation. A soft yes, a photo. But instead, he didn't flinch. And that's what made it worse. He knew it was a bluff. And in that moment, Meghan's entire PR strategy, her entire attempt at re-entry into elite Hollywood spaces, collapsed. Because if someone as respected, as universally adored, as safe as Dwayne Johnson won't give her the time of day, why would anyone else? But Meghan's team wasn't finished. In the hours after the clip surfaced and disappeared, insiders say her crisis manager was flooded with messages, questions, warnings, demands for clarity. And that's when the damage control campaign began in earnest. Meghan's side claimed the clip was fabricated. The quotes were taken out of context. The situation was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. But behind the scenes, they were panicking. Why? Because there was another clip. Longer, clearer. And the intern? He had it all. We've heard that, too. And in that full recording, there's no room for misinterpretation. Meghan wasn't invited. She named Netflix. She leaned on Dwayne Johnson. She believed he would bend. And when he didn't, she cracked. But there's something even more surprising. That intern, he didn't want to destroy her. He wasn't out for revenge. He was just disappointed. In a message sent to a friend after the event, he wrote, "I used to admire her. Thought she was fearless. But now? I don't know. It just felt fake. Like she was chasing something that didn't exist anymore." That's the real story, isn't it? Not the audio. Not the escort out. But the loss of authenticity. Because in Hollywood, when people stop believing you, it's over. But Meghan? She doesn't go down without a fight. Because just hours after the recording was deleted, she placed a call to the one man who once sheltered her when the world turned its back. Tyler Perry. The man who gave her a home, a voice, a lifeline. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What if it was never about the conversation? Not the greeting, not the whispered plea, not even the accusation that Dwayne Johnson owed her something. What if this whole thing, from beginning to end, was never meant to be heard? Because what Meghan Markle wanted was to be seen. Let's pull back the curtain on the real reason Meghan showed up to the first-time Golden Globes nominee luncheon. Not as an attendee, not as a guest, but as a walking, breathing, meticulously styled optical illusion. A photo. That's all she needed. One frame, one shutter click, one viral image. And the entire narrative, the one that's been slipping through her hands for months, could shift back in her favor. Sound extreme? Not in Hollywood. Because when you're trying to reclaim power in an industry built on image, a single photo can rewrite everything. And Meghan? She knew it. Let's break this down. According to a high-ranking PR strategist who has worked with multiple Oscar-nominated actresses, Meghan's plan followed a classic crisis marketing formula. 1. Insert yourself into a prestigious setting. 2. Align visually with an uncontested power figure. 3. Let the image suggest reconciliation, reintegration, or respect. 4. Disappear before anyone can question it. It's silent messaging. No press release. No interview. Just perception. And who better to stand beside than Dwayne Johnson? The safest man in Hollywood. Charisma in human form. Universally respected. A man who has navigated action franchises, family films, and philanthropy without a single scandal sticking to his name. He was the perfect prop. The irony? Dwayne Johnson is nobody's prop. But Meghan didn't see that coming. According to leaked texts from her stylist, messages that surfaced just 2 days after the luncheon, Meghan had already chosen the frame. All white, hair up, minimal jewelry, full Grace Kelly vibes. The outfit she wore wasn't random. It was constructed. White equals purity, reinvention. Sleek equals modern royalty. Updo equals sophistication. No bold accessories equals no distractions from her. Everything was curated for one outcome: a visually stunning, nonverbal re-entry into elite spaces. Now, why would that matter? Because Meghan's brand has been quietly hemorrhaging. The Spotify deal collapsed. The Netflix numbers didn't live up to the internal expectations. The podcast reboot fizzled out before it began. Archetypes became Archie Watt. And after a full year of negative headlines, critical op-eds, and a royal rift that has lost its emotional punch, Meghan needed something new. Or at least something that looked new. Enter the Golden Globes luncheon. A low-key, no-press event packed with credibility. Perfect. So how was she going to get the photo? That's where it gets clever. According to a source within a major PR agency, Meghan's team had mapped out a three-stage plan. Stage 1, entry. Gain access through a soft pass, someone unofficial enough to deny involvement, but close enough to get her through the door. Remember the unnamed woman in the navy pantsuit who whispered to the intern at check-in? Yeah, we'll come back to her. Stage 2, glide. No rushing. No big entrance. Just Meghan slipping into the background, hovering at the fringes, making herself available to be noticed. There were even 2 independent photographers on standby at nearby hotels. Paparazzi, but dressed like guests. Each had been instructed to wait for a specific signal. Meghan raising her glass with her left hand. Why that detail? Because her left hand would reveal her wedding ring, connecting the photo to her public identity, not just her as a lone socialite. Stage 3, the shot. A staged moment, pre-planned and executed in under 60 seconds. Meghan approaches Dwayne. He turns, surprised but delighted. They smile. She gently touches his arm. Cameras flash. Done. She doesn't even have to stay. That one image, Meghan Markle and Dwayne Johnson sharing a genuine laugh at a private industry event, would dominate Instagram, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, and every entertainment site from Deadline to Pop Sugar. It would look candid. It would feel earned. It would scream, "She's back." But it didn't go that way. Not even close. Because what Meghan didn't anticipate, Dwayne wasn't briefed. He wasn't in on it. He wasn't asked. And you don't ambush The Rock. Not at the height of awards season. Not during a lunch designed to honor new voices. Not when he's surrounded by people who actually earned their place in the room. The plan shattered instantly. No handshake. No smile. No eye contact worth printing. And when she whispered that infamous line, "You owe me," Dwayne's expression didn't shift toward guilt. It hardened. That was the exact moment the backup photographer, waiting outside near the valet, started texting furiously. No green light. Abort. The reply from the event liaison, believed to be working unofficially with Meghan's team, was chilling. "We have a fallback. Get the hallway shot." That's right. They planned for rejection. Plan B? Capture her being asked to leave with grace. Turn humiliation into martyrdom. Because in a world where sympathy gets clicks, even rejection can be spun. Think. Meghan quietly escorted from event after miscommunication. A photo of her walking away, chin high, might still evoke respect, might still spark commentary. But what actually got captured? Meghan with clenched jaw, avoiding eye contact, while security moved in. No grace. No spin. Just exposure. And the photographers? One disappeared. The other was caught by actual Golden Globe staff and politely removed. No charges filed. But cameras were searched. Footage deleted. Or so they thought. Because by the next morning, 2 almost identical photos surfaced online. Both blurry. Both framed poorly. Both untagged. And in each, Meghan. Mid-turn. Half-shadowed. No Dwayne. No smiles. No story. Just a failed attempt. A PR ghost. But this gets deeper. Because PR stunts gone wrong don't just vanish. They boomerang. Especially when people in the room start talking. One stylist wrote in a group chat, "She was there for one thing. And it flopped." A talent manager replied, "She underestimated the vibe. Thought she could stage a moment and slide out. Didn't realize the industry has moved on." And that's the line that matters most. The industry has moved on. You see, in Hollywood, comeback stories are welcomed if they feel authentic. But when they feel forced, calculated, Desperate? They get buried. Because desperation smells. And in a room full of rising stars, producers, and powerhouse agents, Meghan's arrival reeked of it. And the most ironic part? Had she just walked in quietly, no plan, no photographers, no setup, she might have had a shot. A real moment. A real smile. A genuine interaction. But instead, she chased the illusion of relevance and lost the real thing. Still, Meghan isn't one to retreat quietly. She had one card left to play. A lifeline she had sworn never to use again. Because as her plan collapsed, her team imploded, and the media turned cold, Meghan picked up the phone and dialed the one man who had once offered her refuge. Tyler Perry. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Have you ever noticed how a single person can change the entire trajectory of an event without saying a word? Without raising their voice? Without even making eye contact? That's what happened the moment Dwayne Johnson's head of security decided to act. Let's set the stage. The luncheon was in full swing. First-time Golden Globe nominees were sipping champagne, comparing notes, and basking in the rare moment of recognition. Hollywood's finest mingled with elegance, and for most, it was a day of celebration. But for Meghan Markle, it was the moment of truth. She had made her approach, whispered her infamous line, attempted to charm, leverage, and cajole, all while cameras, some official, some clandestine, rolled. And then he moved. Not Dwayne Johnson, the head of security, former Navy SEAL, built like a fortress, eyes scanning every inch of the room. Calm, deliberate, unflappable. He wasn't just watching Meghan. He was reading her. Every step, every smile, every subtle lean forward. And when she lingered near the inner circle, he did something unusual. He stepped forward, carefully, deliberately, leaving just enough space for Meghan to realize someone was assessing her. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't aggressive. But he was present, and presence alone can speak volumes. Eyewitnesses later described the tension in the room as palpable. A stylist whispered to a colleague, "He's not going to let this slide." A junior producer froze mid-sentence. "This is weirdly intense." And Meghan? She froze too. For just a split second, her eyes flicked toward the man. A micro-expression: annoyance? Surprise? Calculated patience? Hard to tell. But the bodyguard didn't move again. Not until Dwayne Johnson gave the subtle nod. And here's the fascinating part. That nod wasn't public. It wasn't flamboyant. It was a nearly imperceptible tilt of the head. But in that moment, the bodyguard became the enforcer of consequence. Because Meghan's carefully planned PR move now had a live obstacle. Not cameras. Not reporters. Not distant critics. A man whose sole purpose was to protect the sanctity of the event, and by extension, protect Dwayne Johnson. And when he began to approach her, the room's dynamic shifted instantly. Guests whispered. Cameras refocused. Phones recorded. Staff paused. It was subtle chaos. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tension magnified. Here's where it gets interesting. The bodyguard didn't touch her. He didn't need to. His approach alone communicated authority. Polite authority. Non-negotiable authority. And that's what Meghan hadn't anticipated. No amount of charm, no carefully rehearsed phrase, no whispered appeal could sway someone like him. Because unlike a celebrity, he didn't play for attention. He played for results. And his result was clear. Step aside, or be escorted out. Now, let's talk about the psychology here. For anyone trying to navigate Hollywood power dynamics, the bodyguard's role is often underestimated. He's not just muscle. He's a deterrent, a signal, a live consequence. He embodies authority. And when you're someone like Meghan Markle, used to negotiation, charm, and influence, this can be disarming. Multiple insiders describe her reaction as a rare moment of hesitation. Not panic, not aggression, hesitation. Because suddenly, the game had changed. The PR gamble she had meticulously designed, the staged walk, the whisper, the anticipated smile, the viral photo, was crumbling before her eyes. And yet, she tried one last maneuver. A subtle lean toward Dwayne. Another whispered plea. Another attempt at charm. But the bodyguard mirrored her every move with calm, silent authority. It was a dance of tension. Who would yield? And here's the ironic twist. The bodyguard wasn't there to embarrass her. He was there to protect the event, the nominees, and Dwayne's reputation. But from Meghan's perspective, it felt personal. Every step he took toward her was a reminder that the world she thought she controlled wasn't under her influence.